Morning.
Morning. You look pretty.
Oh, thank you. How are you guys all doing?
Okay.
Good. I'm down in Marin today and tomorrow, so I'm working out of the Southern Marin Fire offices. They're letting me use their conference room right now, which is why it has all this cool stuff going on back here.
You look like you're in the situation room.
Yeah, basically.
Hi, Devin. Hi, Jean.
Hi.
Oh, hi. Jean, it's been a while since we've seen you. Welcome
It
back.
has been. Yeah, thank you. Good to be back.
And Tamra. Cool. Good to see you.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. You, Fred, Jill, Kim. This is great. All right.
Looks
Awesome. Good to see everyone. Okay. Well, why don't we dive into our updates? I guess I should also say, maybe just at the beginning, I'll just mention that our agenda is pretty flexible today. So I have some kind of open time for anything that, is a hot topic or something that people want to talk about that they maybe wish was on the agenda, but didn't have a chance to mention it before. So we can use that time to talk about things that come up in the updates or something else that just feels important to you. So maybe have that in the back of your head while we're having our updates. And then after that, we will go into talking about the kind of getting some input from you all about who you want to hear from at future meetings, speaker wise or field trip wise. I have this list that I've been accumulating over the months and have been wanting to just kind of get a feeling from you guys about like which ones feel most important, like if there's a certain season when these things need to happen or what. And speaking of speakers, we have a pending presentation coming from Susan Hayden and Sashi and their colleague DND Pietro, as Kim has been involved with and knows. This is all about the wildfire resilience planner. They want to introduce us to that tool since it has been in development and is at a point right now where they're ready to show it around and get input from everyone. So we were actually hoping to do that today, but I think we'll do it next month or sometime before the year ends to get your input on it. So that is at the top of the list, but it's kind of something that's being scheduled. So just so you know, it is coming. And yeah, so then we'll go over some topics, see what you guys think. And then in the last part of the hour, we will talk about the conference, just kind of give you guys an update as to where it is and get your thoughts on tour sites since we want the second day of the conference to be out in the field. Okay, right. With all of that prefacing, I think we'll get started and I'll take the first person on my screen for their update, which is Devin.
Hi, everybody. My name is Devin. I work at Pepperwood Preserve. Our updates, we have prescribed fire on Saturday planned, which will be led by myself and Sasha Burlman and the Good Fire Alliance with support of Sonoma County Fire. The project is funded by Sonoma County Ag and Open Space Grant, which we're really excited about. So it's nice to have that project wrapped up. And then we have 2 VMP burns that are looking like they're going to happen potentially in the next few weeks. Those will be led by CAL FIRE. They're units that we have been planning for about 3 years now. The prep work happened 2 years ago. Last fall, weather conditions didn't lead to it. But our VMP process and ARC surveys are all done. CAL FIRE has been out doing a little additional prep. And yeah, that's about it. Had recently had some really good conversations with both Ben Nichols and Nate Glazer, who is our battalion chief, around the way that the LNU CAL FIRE unit is going to start giving out permits for prescribed fire. They've gotten some clarity around their liability in the legal side. So as the unit chief has really come together with, we should be issuing these LE7, LE8 permits and not necessarily putting parameters around them. Before they used to put some pretty strict parameters and issuing them very loosely or very tightly. And so they're starting to loosen that up. So I'm anticipating that for the private burner, this process is going to begin to be a lot easier with CAL FIRE making a little bit of a shift to support them with permitting. They will not be able to support them unless your property is under CEQA, at least in this unit. But I think it's some exciting things. Our battalion chief, Nate, is really happy that this is the way it's going. And I think these battalion chiefs have really clear instructions. Before it used to be there used to be a lot up in the air. So yeah, that's all I got for now.
All right, thanks. Interesting developments. Next is Sashi.
I was just taking a sip right when you said that. Good to see everybody. Devin, that was great to hear. I just had lunch with Ben Nichols the other day and he was telling me about that. So I'm really excited and kind of want to hear more about how that goes. And I put in the chat that I think it would be a good idea to maybe once you've kind of been through a little round of that to have you guys bring that back. I think it'd be really awesome to hear more about that. So let's see, there's lots going on. We're moving forward with the wildfire resilience planner. Also looking at kind of the next evolution of the fuel mapper. Unclear whether or not it's going to end up being incorporated into the resilience planner more tightly, or whether or not we would need to kind of redo things once the new LiDAR and data kind of come out. But what I'd love to kind of hear from you all is my sort of hypothesis is that there are kind of two things that we would want. One is the ability to kind of look at more than one parcel and generate the the kind of PDF type maps for that. But two, also have something that you could take out on a tablet in the field with you and look at, so that you could use for kind of ground truthing. And I'm also kind of hypothesizing that you might only, each of you might want different layers. You may not need all of that. Maybe you need like some more than others. So I'll be kind of hopefully getting more feedback from you all on that as we kind of move forward. Well, I'll just go with that. There's a lot going on, but there's that. I'm actually in the kind of the home stretch of my master's thesis, which some of you kind of were involved in some of my data collection on that, which is how can visualization be used to catalyze community consensus around wildfire vegetation management. So hopefully I'll be giving you some more info on that as I go.
Great. Yeah. And Sashi, let us know how we can be, providing input for you about the wildfire fuel mapper. Yeah. And Jean, you are next.
Hi, everybody. It's good to be back. So as the chair of Sierra Club's Northern California Forest Committee, what is the biggest thing going on these days as part of our fire ecology subgroup, and it has to do with PG&E and their enhanced vegetation management plan. And we're finding we have a website just for our Sierra Club statewide utility wildfire prevention task force now. And we are gathering stories from people in all different counties. And we also have several, let's see, hold on one second. Oh, too much to find. We have, there are 7 counties and 3 cities who have filed formal complaints or lawsuits thus far. And there are 2 counties that have, that CAL FIRE has put out at least 11 notices of violation. They go to Sacramento, and then it turns out that they just sit on the governor's desk. So that's not very good, but there are 6 other counties who are considering action. I just heard yesterday, Lake County Board of Supervisors wants to sue PG&E. I've given a couple grassroots meetings, 2 in Mendocino County and 1 in Lake County, to gather the rural residents who are absolutely freaking out. They don't want wildfires, but they're being completely bullied by PG&E's contractors who are just coming in ruthlessly off of their right-of-ways and cutting down trees on private land without any notice. And in some cases, there's elder abuse. One 86-year-old man who has 450 acres in Lake County, they cut 700 trees of his. And another one, an older guy who had a stroke, they cut 100 trees. So because so much is going on with that, California Sierra Club is starting to develop a campaign. And so far we have 5 chapters in California that have decided to join this effort. So if you know of anyone who's struggling, I can get you a website to look at. I have handouts that are action options and keep out signs that have all the California penal codes and regulations that were vetted by a law firm, and also a generic letter to a sheriff that includes those regulations, because in Lake County, at the end of the grassroots meeting, this woman named Natasha, who's a great organizer, put it together, and a deputy came out to her house and told her that there was a tree cutter who complained at the sheriff's office that they were being harassed for cutting trees. And there was a woman at the end of the meeting yelling from a car, and I just kind of ignored her. So at that point, we realized that the sheriffs need to know that their constituency may need protection from harassment or other illegal activities. So they're taking care of their own people, not whoever is coming in from outside and needlessly cutting their trees. And it appears from having foresters double check the trees that they consider hazard trees, that most of them are not hazard trees or danger trees. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jean. I just want to give a moment for anyone to respond to who might know of someone who's going through a similar. I mean, I think a lot of us have had moments with PG&E where it was a struggle to figure out what to do. Fred in particular has worked on that a lot, and it looks like Sashi's working on this too. But yeah, thanks for keeping us informed and letting us know what we can do. Next is Fred.
Since you mentioned it, I have been in a PG&E struggle for 2 years and have not won 1 point. They've even, they lose things from 2 years ago. They won't take the Douglas fir from my land. I've filled out the form twice. I've asked them in the field. I've given them a landing to do all the other work in the neighborhood, but they still can't seem to move my Douglas fir. They also did do a bunch of, I haven't gotten around to claiming the trees that they cut because it's too exhausting. I'm dealing with AT&T as well. Speaking of PG&E, I'm starting a timber harvest right now with the Jenner Headlands Preserve. And one of the things we're doing is we're moving out the PG&E cut logs. And back to the previous conversation, most people have no clue what to do with those PG&E cut logs. I mean, once they're on the ground, half the argument is over. And there needs to be knowledge of what the plan is. It's a very simple piece of paper to get a right-of-way easement. And but people don't know how to do that, and they don't know how to ship the logs, and they don't know that they've got $50,000 worth of value on their ground. They don't know how to deal with it. And we need rules for how PG&E cuts what their program is. Scott Stevens at the USOL meeting, that's reporting back. I was at the USOL board meeting. Scott Stevens was the presenter. He's a professor at Berkeley. and does fire science in redwoods and says, most of those trees are going to be fine.
Most
Of
what?
them, most of the redwood trees are going to be fine. The burn on them, it looks much more severe than he sees in his professorial way. There were, we can disagree about points. Other than that, we've got Jenner logging going. We've got a VTP being prepared over on Schoen Farm. I am having CAL FIRE archaeology look over how to do a VTP inquiry to the archaeology thing. So actually, Ben over at CAL FIRE is being extremely helpful with me, and I really appreciate that. And everybody's trying to get the VTPs going through. Final thing to report is next week I am going to a conference on VTPs in Humboldt, put on by Flock, Forest Landowners of California. It's the 28th in Eureka, and I just want somebody to hold my hand as we go through this CEQA mitigated neg deck process and all the little pieces that it's going to ensue. And yes, I think there should be a template for this, like I think there should be a template for forest management plans, so that you can get through it without having to reinvent the wheel each time. And also, thanks for the information on the LE7, LE8. I presume that that is to occur during burn season, but it is a broader burn as a PFERS burn. And so we'll be looking at that at Schoen Farm. We're working with Annie Madden, who is preparing those things. So that's all to report. Yeah.
Yeah, Fred, just to clarify, there still will be the summer preparedness and winter preparedness seasons, and so the LE7, LE8 will only apply during that summer preparedness process. So as soon as you're in winter preparedness, permits are off and burning is allowed.
Is broadcast burning allowed in winter season?
Yeah, in winter preparedness is, I believe that's what they're calling it now.
So long as it goes through the PFERS system, I presume.
Yeah, as long as
smoke management.
CAL FIRE goes, smoke management is a whole different category. They don't quite overlap. So you still, all year round, you still have to deal with PFERS and smoke management. But in winter,
right, but in winter you don't need the LE7, LE8. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Fred. Yeah, lots going on. And since you mentioned the CalVTP, I just want to say I was looking back at our last meeting and we had tons of CalVTP conversation happening there. And I just know everyone's kind of like deep in it, trying to get through it. So I will work with Kim to restart our CalVTP support group, as we've been trying to. So just yeah, look out for an email invitation to that, and we'll start getting folks together so you can talk about what's happening and troubleshoot together. It's a hairy process for sure. Okay.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, I dropped the ball. Just had too many things that I needed to focus on with the reporting to the board. But I think it's going to be something that we can really address in January, as a lot of these CalVTPs are starting to come into place. I have counted about 11 that are going on in Sonoma County. So I think that would be really good for us to have a discussion about what are the key things that people are running into, some really good experiences across the county that should be shared.
Awesome. Great. Okay. Actually, Kim, you're next.
All I got. No. So Kim Batchelder, Ag and Open Space. I just wanted to share with you all next Wednesday, we're going to have a community outreach meeting on a webinar that's going to allow us, the county and the Healthy Forests ad hoc committee, report out on how much progress we've been able to make in the realm of vegetation management and wildfire resilience. This is going to be a public meeting from 5 to 7, and I'll put a link in the chat real soon. We'll be having a host of different county organizations report out on the types of things that they're doing. But we really want to try to get some feedback on the directions we're going, areas in which we can improve. As I mentioned in the flyer that I sent out yesterday, is that you guys represent some of the grantees of this program. It would be really great to hear your perspective on how it has helped you make advances, how it could be changed in the future. I think we have a lot to share, and so I encourage you to participate. So that's all I'll report out today.
Okay, thanks, Kim, so much. And next is Tamara. Tamara, I don't know if you have been to one of these meetings before, maybe a while ago, but please introduce yourself.
Sure. Thank you very much. And good morning, everyone. It's nice to be here. I am new. I've never been here before, so this is my first meeting, but I've been following along on the email thread. Thank you for all the coordination there. I have a few affiliations. It might take me just a minute to introduce myself. I'm an associate board director of the Gold Ridge RCD. I'm a co-owner of Green Valley Farm and Mill, which has 85 acres of mixed evergreen forest that we've been doing burns on and are working on our phase 2 of small diameter tree removal right now. And I'm also representing Today Forestry Collective. It's a business that is getting set up here at Green Valley Farm and Mill in our historic mill site to bring small diameter tree processing back to the county. So we're really excited. We received the BioBiz Award in 2021 that kickstarted our business, and we just received a U.S. Forest Service grant to research feedstock supply. So I'm really excited to hear all these conversations. We'll be looking within about a 30-mile radius of our operation. And if we get our CAL FIRE grant, which we'll hear back in December, we'll have that mill from Woodlandia. So that's going to really increase our production. We'll be converting the small diameter trees into carbon stable furniture items, and also are working with our other BioBiz winner soil management carbon company that will be doing fungal inoculants to the wood chips. We're trying to be a 0% waste facility. So we're looking at all the benefits of working with small diameter. And eventually, because there's so much feedstock in our county, we've estimated about 40 years of supply for us. We're also looking into Berry Sawmill as how do we secure that for the region so that we continue to do this great work and expand upon that. So it's great to be here. I'll be at the monthly meetings and learning from you all. We are a great site for tours. So we have the burn and then the non-burn forest, so you can see kind of the control and the different treatments. We also have regenerative farming happening on site here too, which I know about, but I'm not actively part of right now because I'm focusing on the forest and our mill. So that's a little bit about me. I'm looking forward to learning more about you all and all your work. Oh, and lastly, because we did this burn with Fire Forward, I'm working with Fire Forward on a landowner's guide to prescribe burn. So going through that process, it took us 2 years. We started in 2020, and we are, a smaller landowner. Our total acreage is 170 acres, but it was quite a bit of work. So we're doing a write-up on how much money, staffing allocation internally that was required. Also, I was providing food and just all the things that people need to think about if they are going to do prescribed burn on their land. And with Fire Forward support, I mean, they do so much of the work. So if they weren't involved, forget about it. It would be just too much. But I'm excited to create that resource for landowners so that they can consider bringing good fire back to the land. Thanks.
Yay, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Tamara. It's really good. I didn't even know all the things that you were doing out there. So it's really nice to hear that. And yeah, surprise.
Tamara,
even more
can you
awesome
post a
is-
website link or something so we can see some of that?
Yes. And good, suggestion too that you guys are a potential tour site. I'll want to circle back on that when we get to the tourist part of the conversation. Great. Okay, and Lynn. You're next.
Hi there. Lynn Garrick in the Upper Marquest Watershed. Not a lot going on. I think we're just all sighing a breath of relief that maybe we've made it through fire season. So that is a nice thing to see the weather change and look forward to some rain. I'm working on a grazing grant with my neighbors to the west, which is the Foothills Ranch development. Those are due tomorrow. So we're kind of getting down to the wire on that. We also up here have a CAL FIRE grant that is primarily for planning and networking with landowners in the Upper Mark West and Diamond Mountain watersheds. So we're looking forward to meetings with landowners, trying to organize ourselves. I think we now have kind of community coordinators for each of the areas up here, and representing the different roads up here. So that will be looking at organizing landowners, getting feedback, doing the education around various types of treatment, and then seeing how people want to go forward with implementation. And that's about it. The only other thing I will say is that on my property, we have had an incredible masting of black oak acorns, and we've been very happy to be collecting acorns and distributing them to the local Native Plant Society and some of our burned out neighbors. And maybe next year we'll have white oaks, but if anybody's looking for acorns, we know our trees very well up here and are happy to share.
Great.
Lynn, I'm gonna need like 5,000 acorns. So, so I'll go visit you. Okay.
You can set up a tent, Fred, and we'll let you stay here for a while.
Awesome. Thanks, Lynn. Bruce Stemming, I think you might also be new.
Yeah, this is my first meeting. Came across this group and doing some research about forest restoration. I'm in the process of acquiring 186 acres north of Jenner. That's a redwood property along the coast that has either been neglected or abused sort of over the last 100 years, and still has a lot of good redwood on it, but needs a lot of cleanup and restoration. And my goal is just to learn about what other people have done, get connected to resources, and over the coming years to try to return the forest to a healthier state of being and do some fire clearing and replanting and probably a lot of the things that you all are doing.
This is a great group to plug into. And I think actually we talked on the phone a few weeks back.
Yes.
Yeah. So please do plug in. You've got a lot of resources here. Jean?
Yeah, Bruce, our Sierra Club Forest Committee put together a strategy document for thinning for small landowners. I'm happy to share that with you.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah, I just need your email.
And Jean, if you would share that with the listserv too, that would be great. I'll put it up on our website.
I'll just give it to you and you can pass it out then. Okay.
Awesome. Bruce, was there anything that you wanted to add?
Let's see, I'm working with a forester already, having a forest inventory done, plan on doing a forest improvement plan and probably putting a timber plan in place. And looking at doing, I mean, there's so much to learn, but doing some initial clearing of trees and thinning along the roads to get access in and out to of the property, and then sort of progressively working on more and more of the land.
Great. Thanks. All right. Well, sweet. And thanks for everyone for already dropping in some resources there for Bruce in the chat. Okay, next is Jill Butler. And Jill, I'll give you a second to connect via phone.
Good morning, Jill Butler, representing Gualala River Watershed Council. And I did want to say that, so the council is going to be working on a collaborative project with Sonoma RCD, developing a management plan for Gualala River watershed as a whole. And one of the steps we're taking is trying using the forest group as a model, trying to start getting all the stakeholders to the table and doing round robin check-ins so we get to know each other and find out what the heck's going on? So we did have our monthly meeting Tuesday night and had Blake Tallman attend from the Conservation Fund, and learned that they have just completed a big stream restoration project on Buckeye Creek and placed 80 pieces of large wood, most of which they had generated from the grasshopper THP on their own property. And that's about the most interesting thing I have to report.
That is cool. Thanks, Jill. All right, Tori. And Tori's also new. So many new people this month. It's very exciting.
Hi, I'm Tori Norville. I am the new fire science advisor for Sonoma, Napa, and Marin counties with UC Cooperative Extensions. My background is forestry. I'm an RPF. And I've worked with CAL FIRE the last 7 years on their demonstration state forest up in Mendocino. So I'm just kind of here observing what's going on. I've heard about this group, and Sophia sent me a link today to join today's meeting. So yeah, I'm excited to have potential collaborations with all of you and just kind of fit into the community.
That's awesome. Can you give us an idea of what kind of services or work that you might be doing in your position? If it's too new to say, that's okay too.
Yeah. So as the fire science advisor, I am kind of pretty much anything dealing with fire. So that's from like home hardening, defensible space, all the way to forest management, landscape management, field treatments. Sashi and I kind of overlap a little bit in there. But yeah, pretty much anything dealing with fire, I can come out and help with. And then because I have a forestry background, I kind of like forest health and just forestry in general. So yeah.
Okay, great. All right, sweet. Nice to meet you. We hope to see you in the future again. And Sophia Porter is last but not
I'm
least.
sorry, just if, Tori, could you post, or is there a way I can get your contact info? Is it already in here somehow, or could you post it?
Yeah, I'll post it.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Sophia. I'm with the Cooperative Extension as well, but in Marin County. And as Tori alluded to, we pass notes to each other and talk to each other as well. For the most part, my position is very much focused on urban landscaping, home horticulture, but also educating defensible space inspectors and a few of those constituent groups. But I always like to have my ear on the ground for what's going on in the wildlands. I get some questions pertaining to that and have to provide some answers. And there is a organization which Sashi knows very well in Marin County, the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority, that got passed as a Measure C, taxing residents for this kind of oversight organization. And I was going to drop their link in the chat, as with a lot of the vegetation management going on with shaded fuel breaks and clearing out roadsides and things like that. They're going full bore and very proud of what they're doing in the community, and I'm associated with them as well. But like I said, mostly doing things about outreach, homeowner education, being invited to certain groups to give presentations to about either fire ecology or home hardening, those type of things. But like I said, I have my heart's in the wildlands, and I always like to hear what you all are doing out there and then maybe do some field work and things like that. So, okay.
Yeah, awesome. Good to see you. And great to hear more about what's happening in Marin too. Okay, I think that's everyone, if I didn't miss anyone. And so now we have some time just to kind of circle back on any hot topic issues that you guys want to spend some time discussing. And if there are none, we can move on, but I just want to give some time for that. Sashi.
Hey, so I dropped this in the chat. I was realizing that I think I've mentioned this to a few of you. I've been wanting to put together in the resilience planner what I've been kind of calling a collaboration layer to sort of indicate, what areas of the county are covered by some kind of collaborative group. And what we had sort of put together was, all right, so who's got a local CWPP, who's got a fire safe council? That's an easy one to kind of denote. But we just talked in this room about like a bunch of different things, like, what Tamara's doing, and where I'm realizing like none of that's going to get covered. So from your point of view, what's the best way to figure out what all those groups are? I mean, I think I could probably, ask, Goldridge and Sonoma RCDs to kind of help with that as well. But is there a better way to get a handle on the idea being, to encourage collaboration and also identify gaps where there isn't any, to see where there might be a need to prioritize some capacity building and support. So wanted to see if anyone had any thoughts on how to capture that, or at least the state of where we are right now in terms of collaboration.
I attended a meeting yesterday led by Adina Marinlander regarding the 30 by 30 carbon organization, and they're working hard with forest restoration groups. They believe there is something called restoration, and they're doing a big academic approach to it to see where it is most effective and who does it best. And they're trying to tie it in with kids, or if you will, young adults, as creation of that. And I think there should be some sort of connection here, because it's, as we talk about these various projects and how is all the thinning going, these are the people who are doing the thinning and are being a one-to-one experiment for them. I'd also like to iterate that my land is open for experimentation, having just been burned and looking like a seed tree removal, and I'm trying to figure out how to grow carbon fastest rather than just trees. And talking to Judy, who's put together the Coast Range Collaborative, she keeps adding acres by the ton. She just got Richardson in the group yesterday, so now they have, probably 20,000 acres involved, and those are all open for experimentation too, from the restoration forestry we're doing at Jenner down to biochar on the Richardson property, or regenerative forestry throughout the area over time. And in fact, if you look across the whole area, you get a picture across time. So there's a lot of community organizations happening, and academics as well. So I think we should probably reach out to Adina and get that tied in.
Sorry, who was Adina again? She was the 30 by 30?
Adina Marinlander is a professor at Berkeley who is working on carbon sequestration at the national level, and has a collaborative, at the national level, and research, if you will, here, looking at the local groups.
Okay, well, it sounds like you and I know we've talked this before. I think you and Tori you probably need to get together and talk about, what she can, what kind of research she might want to do. I'm sure she's got. I don't want to speak for you, Tori, but I'm sure you've got ideas.
And yes, that was a shout out to UCCE as well. And you guys probably know Adina best because she started the California Naturalist Program, which is now all over. And so her vision is to have naturalists who can be sort of AA certified to do this kind of work and lead the groups, the thousands of teams that need to go out.
I think Adina is a cooperative extension specialist too. I think she falls under cooperative extension, but is based in Berkeley.
Anything else anybody knows about? I'll definitely reach out to the RCDs. I'm just realizing I didn't do that to see what other kind of groups there are. But besides what Fred mentioned, anybody else that would be kind of a source of that information of who's collaborating on
Permits
vegetation management of any kind?
Permit Sonoma might be a good place. They have
Good point.
plugged into, at least with all the CWPPs throughout the county, and probably a number of other.
Well, and then probably just CAL FIRE. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Sashi, I feel like in terms of fire resilience collaboration, like I think the fire safe councils for sure. I mean, there are some watershed councils too that are sort of like taking on fire safe work that would be really important to reach out to. And then there's kind of like Lynn was saying, there's community grazing. So sort of new groups are coming together, new groups of neighbors are starting to do grazing work, maybe where they haven't done any other firework before. It'd be good to find out who they are. And I feel like there's a lot that I'm not thinking of right now, but yeah, there are lots of like initiatives springing up. And mapping this would be really interesting. Just seeing.
Yeah, that it
comes.
would be, because, you know, as you're doing your stuff, you're kind of realizing, oh, I didn't even realize that, you know, that group is not that far away from me, or, you know, so that, you know, people like, you know, Kim putting a grant program together can go like, oh, wow, there's a big hole here. And this is a, you know, a high risk area, or, you know, vulnerable area for one or the other things like that. Just to me, that seems like a really critical piece of the puzzle. So thank you.
And Sashi, I think that there's a lot of groups that could get more out of collaboration, such as if the sheep group is next door and you're doing the burn group, there is a way to get this to happen, but those two groups may not know each other and they may be miles away bureaucratically.
So without taking too much thunder out of my presentation on Wednesday, one of the things we're really trying to do is kind of like serve up one portal where a lot of those projects are listed. And it seems like the community wildfire protection plan tool for the county that Permit Sonoma and Carleone are leading seems to be the most logical tool for that. And so the project ranking tools helped us last year to do some filtering of the vegetation management grant applications. I think that's going to be more and more robust as we integrate the wildfire protection, or the wildfire resiliency tool that Sonoma Water and UC Extension are developing. So I think all that is helping us to collaborate better. And as Fred just mentioned, we need to identify those gaps where the risk is really high, the communities aren't specifically organized, or there's no organization that's representing those high risk areas, and determine exactly how to best fill those gaps. And so that's essentially the nature of our discussion on Wednesday. So I really appreciate those comments today.
Perhaps they've come up before, but Blue Forest is definitely in the financing end of these large scale conservation projects. And I connected with them last week because the majority of the forests are privately owned through small land owners. It's a real challenge for them to enter our county, but I would really like to see them come here because they would help get the feedstock supply to our mill if we were able to get them to come to our county. And I feel like there's at least 5,000 acres that's being proactively managed by these community groups up in Casadero. We have about 800 acres around us right now that we're talking to, but I'm really excited about this mapping. This sounds great. And then the timber harvest management plan and forest management plan allocation kind of layer would be really important too, to be able to see like who can actually move that lumber into sales or into other market channels instead of going to the chipper or being buried or made, you know, there's other kind of feedstock supply uses for that wood if you don't have a plan in place.
So I want to go back to Sashi's request of a minute ago. I know that Fire Safe Sonoma and the group of Fire Safe Alliance, I think is what it's called, underneath Fire Safe Sonoma, they've been requesting that all of the fire safe councils and COPE groups and other groups that they associate with submit maps and descriptions of their areas. So if that doesn't exist, that seems like a really obvious place because those are generally organized around CWPPs. Just having that on a map and knowing where don't we have CWPPs in the county, where don't those COPE and CWPP groups meet, that would just be initially very helpful. I'd like to know along the
I did
ridge
reach out to
tops,
them.
you know, where the
Yeah.
gaps. Okay.
Yeah, but that's good to know that they're asking for those now because they didn't have it all mapped out. And you know, yeah, I think that's a really good point about the ridge tops, the ridge top piece of it.
Great, and I put a comment in the chat too about Save the Redwoods League. Okay, cool. Well, great. Are there any other, you know, hot topics or things that people have been puzzling on you want to talk about? Not at this time. Okay. Was it nice to have some open space in our agenda to do this though? I feel like our agenda is so packed. Maybe I'll just do this every month.
And there's something else I did put in the chat earlier was just based on the comments, and we've talked about this before. Like, do you want me to get PG&E to come in and talk about EVM and like I've been talking to them about this for, you know, months, but they, you know, generally they're kind of saying like, well, we want to, you know, we want to know kind of specific stories about what's gone wrong. And so if you guys have specific stories and not, oh, I heard that something, but something like where you have personal knowledge of something, that would be great for them to hear, like kind of from the horse's mouth. Would you guys want that for a future meeting?
Don't they have recordings of me crying on the phone?
I'm sure they do. They do. You and I talked about
the letters I sent to Kelly, you know, it's like, oh, we so wish we could help you. We have equipment inches away, but yeah, I'm not so sure where it goes.
Yeah, I mean, it's a total left-hand, right-hand thing, right? I mean, yeah, go ahead, Jean.
We have many stories from different counties of abuses that have happened. And when the Sierra Club statewide campaign has the website put up, there will be a map that you can plug into all different places and hear those stories. I frankly don't trust PG&E. You know, they put out a good line of talk, but they don't come through. They tend to not take lawsuits on, they settle because they've already got such bad press happening. And I mean, that's the good news that they settle for people, but yeah, I don't trust them. And when they do cut the trees and leave the duff, and they cut the trees in such a way that they can't be used for timber. They don't want to be accused of doing a timber harvest plan, or they put them in chips. And when I was up at the Redwood Valley Grange speaking, members were saying that rats' nests were underneath some of the logs at that point, some of the dead wood, and they were eating the wires in their homes and in their cars. And then when they start their car, then there's sparks that were coming out. Yeah, I don't, you know, they put out a good story. So having them as speakers, I don't know if I could handle that.
Up to you guys. I just want to put it out there, like, because that's, you know, what I've been trying to do is figure out how to coordinate the veg management that they're doing with in Marin, Sonoma, and Napa with local government, and then Sonoma, it's not just local government, but it's private landowners. And Fred and I had a long conversation where I took like a ton of notes on specifics there. But there's, you know, kind of the sort of strategic kind of planning level of like, okay, where are you going to be going? What are you going to be doing? And then there's the kind of tactical level of, you know, what are the contractors doing? And you know, I just keep hearing over and over again that the contractors, you know, what they do, you know, they don't have great oversight over their contractors, or they maybe don't give them great direction, or they are, you know, there's not a great feedback loop. Like that seems to be a really just over and over, you know, hear that. But I will say that where they're moving strategically, and I've had a lot of conversations with their chief risk officer about this, that is, you know, they can only deal with, you know, vegetation like on either side of their, you know, their lines. And so they want to mitigate their risk without having to, do so much work there. So they have been putting a lot more into the technological part of it, the what they call EPSS, the Enhanced Power Line Safety Systems, to where they, and I've seen the, demos of this where they have like there's a line and there's a tree branch and it kind of, falls on the line and it doesn't have EPS, it has and if there's one and it has EPSS and it goes and it's de-energized, and they've done a lot with sectionalizing and putting SCADA systems in so they can do that quite quickly. So they're putting a lot more into the technology to limit that to where I would actually, this EVM plan is I think it's a 10-year plan, but I would expect that they'll start kind of moving off of that and more onto this EPSS kind of thing, because that's something they can control a little bit better. But that's not to say that this still doesn't need to happen, because this conversation does need to happen. But that's what I'm hearing as far as what they're doing.
Right. So you should look at our website. I just put our website up from our task force. Southern Cal Edison has been comprehensively modernizing their above ground infrastructure, which is really inexpensive and lasts 40 years and doesn't take down trees. They may take down 2 trees in a linear mile, whereas PG&E is taking down hundreds and cutting over 1 million trees a year. And I was speaking with one of the guys who had been working as a contractor, and he said they do not pay attention to their right-of-ways. They're supposed to, they legally can do 4 feet around, but they don't pay attention to the right-of-ways. And some contractors are paid by the cut tree and other contractors are paid by the linear mile. But if one landowner doesn't want them to cut the trees, they don't get paid for that linear mile. So that's one of the problems with people finding they're being pressured and bullied. So I think that what they really need to do is modernize their infrastructure. Yeah. Anyway, we'll talk on the side more about that.
Yeah, we'll talk on the side. But Adriana, I just wanted to put that out. If you guys decide that you want them to come, like I can get them to come, but you can just tell me if you want.
Actually, I think it's a really good idea. I think it's really determining which level of PG&E we want. If it's from the PR department, then that's probably not going to.
Oh no, yeah.
But if we can try to get someone who's going to really address maybe the technical nature of their approach and say, this is what we're trying to do, and this is our relationship with the contractors, and any kind of ways in which they could be held accountable, or the contractors are held accountable for the work that they're doing. That would be the line of questions I would like to follow, but it would be great. I think one of the challenges that all of us have felt is that it's this whack-a-mole thing. It's like you try to find an answer from the PG&E rep that's working on your specific area. It's always tough to kind of follow the food chain, if you will, to get the right answers.
And yeah, and that is totally, and Adriana, stop me if you want me to like not take this off. So that's totally the way their organization is built. And actually, one of the things when we first started this conversation around coordination, I kind of got the sense that, they were sort of using me initiating this as a way to kind of break down some of the silos within their organization. And I'm like, I'm totally happy to be used that way. Like if you want, so because they have organizationally, so they have, who you would definitely, we would end up getting to first would be government affairs, who's kind of the first line of talking to, local government and local, and then there's the public safety group. And then there is the kind of routine vegetation management group. And then there was a separate enhanced vegetation management group. And then those have kind of come together. And then there's also a regional organization that came after this last round of stuff. Like, so there's like a regional vice president, and it's been really unclear, what, in theory, the regional vice president is supposed to kind of like corral all those things together, and so you get the kind of by function, specialty, but then you have a regional specialty. But in reality, it's been very much like, okay, well, not everybody knows what everybody else is doing. And like this coordination meeting that I've been we were going to try to do Marin first, and we've rescheduled it like 4 times. Like it just keeps, because it was like, well, Ron Richardson can't be there. Well, but we really need Tony Wall to be there, and he's on vacation. And like, so, but and they want to have like 15 people there because they're like, they like, VPs and directors and then people on there. Like, so it's kind of all over the place. I understand the organization well enough now to kind of know who to ask for. What I think would be really helpful is, specific stories that are not things that about personally, like, Fred has a lot of really specific, obviously from your knowledge as a forester and also your own personal experience. But that is much more helpful than, well, I heard that so-and-so and like, then that's, that can be kind of like, all right, well, there's not anything specific in that, that they can kind of point to. So the more specifics, the more personal connection to the story and really what would you have wanted to see? Like, how would you have wanted it to be handled? Like that to me would be what I'd ask of you guys to bring, rather than just like, bring in all your tomatoes and be ready to, because you can do that too. I think that's fine. They're going to expect that. But it'll be more productive if we have specifics of like, here's what we want. So, okay. Didn't mean to totally derail there, but I thought, since we had some, some thoughts on that.
That was great. That was a hot topic. Exactly what I wanted to have to happen. So, yeah, and I can, maybe this is something we look forward to doing in the new year. Give us some time to get all those cats corralled from PG&E. And I think that would be a really, really good productive conversation. And give us some time too to think of our stories, like you were saying, Sashi, like what happened and how do we wish it went. Okay, great. Well, I think that brings us to the next part of the agenda. And if you have some burning conversations that you want to bring up for next time, just email it to me. Let me know and I'll make time on the next agenda. Also, hi, Steve. See ya. But yeah, so the next part of the agenda is looking over this list of potential like presentation topics or field tour sites. I'm going to put it into the chat. Hopefully everyone has access. It's just a Google sheet. And I will also share my screen so we can kind of look at this together. Let's see. Okay, there we go. Hopefully you can see that. Make it a little bigger. And what I wanted to do here with you all was to go down the line, just remind just state what some of these ideas are, and then also get your input, which you can either give verbally or just by clicking on the sheet, as to, if there's a certain seasonality that we need to follow for this topic, if this is totally appropriate for Zoom, or if we think it would be best done in the field for a field trip, and if anyone feels like moved to help coordinate that event, that would be great. And then your vote. And so the vote is just like it's just an X, and you can put as many votes as you want down the line. You can say, oh yeah, I like all of these. I want to hear from all of them. That's fine. I'm just going to count up the number of X's, and that'll help me kind of prioritize like what's resonating with people. And it's all anonymous too. So, no hard feelings. I just want to take everyone's temperature on, what topics feel the most resonant, what people are most interested in. This one we don't need to vote on because we're already scheduling it. It's already going to happen. But the rest of them I think are just kind of in the idea stage. So first one is NCRP's application for project technical assistance. I think this is an ongoing, this is kind of an old topic, but I think they're still offering it. So the North Coast Resource Partnership offers assistance with developing projects and developing proposals. It's a grant based program, primarily for low income communities. So not so much Sonoma County, more for Mendocino, Humboldt, kind of the North Coast. But I think it's still something that we should be talking to Karen and Catherine about and seeing like what kind of projects they might want to have come out of Sonoma County. Judy, I just always want to hear more about what she's doing on Coast Ridge and just how the phenomenon of Coast Ridge Community Forest has come to be. And I was lucky enough to get a presentation from her a couple of weeks ago, kind of on the side, but I loved it. And I thought it'd be great to have her kind of talk with you all, give you the big picture. We always hear like snippets every month from her, but the big picture is really interesting. Shanti had requested a conversation about biomass processing and best management practices for that. So, you know, what's appropriate and where, site-specific recommendations. I am hoping to produce a presentation that's kind of just like an intro to how to work with the RCDs and what our forestry programs are, since I feel like that can be a little nebulous. So sort of like, what are the different phases of assistance the RCDs can offer? What are the different programs that we offer or can help landowners connect with? So if that's something that you guys have been wanting to learn more about, happy to present on that. Jason can also help me with that. Then a couple of months ago, Dee was asking about working with tribes. So she was saying, you know, some of our members are working with tribes. Can we hear from them how it's been, hear from tribal representatives about what kind of engagement they like, what works for them? I think that's a really interesting topic that we want to be, you know, respectful and invite the right people to talk on that. Here's just a suggestion that, like, instead of having one speaker a month, we have multiple, so we can hear more in shorter, like kind of little lightning presentations. So if you like that, just put an X, you know, and vote for it. And then Ryan Klausch, he's been attending from state parks. He's on the Willow Creek's Sonoma Coast State Park with Brendan. But he was suggesting that he kind of rope in some of his colleagues from inland Sonoma County parks, state parks in Sonoma County, to talk about just what state parks in general is up to, since they have a lot of interesting projects going on. Dee mentioned that Tals is working on their pitch to kind of express all of what they're doing and what they're after. And she wanted to do like a mini presentation, maybe like a 15-minute thing with slides. So I thought that would be great. Jason has material on invasive species control. I was thinking this is probably a seasonal specific one that we should ask him or Devin or whoever about, like, when that would be a good time for us to talk about invasive species control. Fred, I don't really remember this. Fred is the suggested speaker to talk about post-fire planning. So how to reduce fire risk even after the burn, including managing respouts, standing dead, and reforestation efforts. And then suggested speaker is Arthur to talk about Sonoma County forest and fire history. What's our fire regime history? Arthur has done a ton of extensive work on this topic, so I think it would be great to give him a chance to present to us what he's been learning in the last couple of years. I think like 3 years ago, we had a presentation from him in person. That was great. And I'm sure he's learned a lot more since then. So it'd be great to get an update. And then biochar in the North Bay, how do we scale that up? I think it was suggested that Fred and Raymond Baltar talk about this. And just, I think Fred, you're like thinking about doing biochar, haven't done it in your woods. And so, you know, be interesting.
I am a biochar novice, but I'm always happy to learn. Raymond is a master. So yeah, there's a long way to go in there. And that hooks into wood chips for compost, which we were talking about just a little bit earlier. Demra, I believe, was talking about that.
Yeah, great. Okay, yeah, maybe it was actually that your woods would be a good tour site for something like this. Maybe that was the connection.
I just sent something to Steve. I'm happy to bring everybody to my woods. It's clean, it's safe. There's no trees there, but we're wrestling with the idea of how am I going to bring the redwood trees back in the most effective manner.
Nice. Great. And then at our last meeting, Brooke Edwards was saying he really wanted to hear more about Pepperwood's watershed study on the impacts of thinning and prescribed fire on their water table. Because he was saying, you know, if this is if I can understand how Pepperwood has put their study together, we can do one out here and take a look at the effects of our treatments on our water table. And I was just like, well, that's really cool. And it could be something that just Devin and Brooke talk about, one-on-one, or if more people are interested to want to replicate it where you are, it could be good for a group presentation.
I would love for Ryan Farrell, who is our abiotic scientist, has been doing a lot. He has a paired study up in the Sierras along with this, and I think it's a really cool study. I think replicating it is expensive, but I would advocate for that as well. I think I've already talked to Ryan, and he would be excited to present about it. I think a lot of it would be more about preliminary setups and what we're expecting. I think the data collection will be over the next 5 years or so, but I think it's a cool thing of looking at the relationship of fire and water in our watershed.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, that's great. Okay, cool. And then just a general recommendation was to talk about or to learn more about how state and local fire agencies partner with natural resource managers. That was left pretty open-ended. Lastly, how to work with PG&E on vegetation management. So great. And then there's the space for other topics or field trip suggestions. You can just drop them in. Looks like you already started. That's great. So yeah. Any thoughts that you want to share, or we can just kind of, take some time to work on this independently too?
I know I'm doing myself promotion, but I'll put it in there. But we also have vegetation and herp monitoring in our prescribed fire plots, led by our preserve ecologists. So we have both like an abiotic look into the way our treatments are and the biotic look as well. And Michelle Halver is presenting at the Oak Symposium on this. I'm sure she'll already have a nice tied together presentation. So I will advocate for her. And then I always like giving tours of Pepperwood. So we'll have, I think we'll have burnt almost 200, if everything goes as planned, we'll have burnt almost 200 acres this year throughout a few different systems. And I'm sure Michael and myself would be happy to do that.
Awesome. Thank you.
So Allison Schichtel and Misty and our team at Ag and Open Space really pushing on the implementation of the Vital Lands Initiative. And that's pretty comprehensive approach to how we try to do our work in land conservation and trying to meet the 30 by 30 goal to protect 30% of the natural lands in Sonoma County. And so it would be really, I think, useful for us to share a presentation with you as a part of that outreach effort. Misty and Allison are going to the board on November 8th to give them an update. But then I think in January, it'd be really helpful to hear, get an update or provide an update to the working group as part of our goals to do everything from forest conservation to watershed protection and also green belt spaces and things like that. So I think it'd be really useful for you guys to hear that.
Nice. Thank you, Kim. Awesome. I think we might have like 2 years worth of presentations here.
I know, isn't they're just jamming away. So
That's good. I also had kind of a question about presentations not during our usual meeting time of the month. Like, something like I didn't know if we would need more time for the wildfire resilience planner to like do a demoing and like kind of more in-depth review. It might be, I'm just interested to hear if you guys are like, yeah, we have time outside of meetings, or if you're like, no, if it's not at this meeting, I'm not going to make it. That's always good for me to know. So maybe just drop that in the chat.
Adriana, I think about half of these are field.
Field trips, yeah, please mark which ones you think are best for a field trip. And which, of course, is not during our usual meeting time. Okay, great.
We've talked a lot about shaded fuel breaks, and there's been a fair amount of interest in that. That would be a great field level opportunity.
Kim, did you have an idea of like a certain site?
We could do probably five different projects, which I think are really interesting. Saddle Mountain, Calabasas, or Jenner. All of those have provided a lot of great examples. I think a fair number of people have visited the Jenner Headlands, but I think Saddle Mountain is a project that is really trying to, it's been burned, 95% of the property was burned. Most of it was low intensity, low severity. But I think it would be a good example of like, all right, what do you do from here on out? How do you adjust? It's a totally different, I think, different objectives in what Fred is trying to do on his property. But it might be fun to see like a compare and contrast and say, you know, these are the different options we've considered from you know, primarily habitat restoration, watershed protection, and our commitment to manage this land for the county versus a private landowner like Fred, who's had a variety of different objectives. Maybe some of them are similar to what we're using, but from an economic standpoint, Fred doesn't have the same financial support as our organization does on behalf of the county. So maybe a compare and contrast on something like that. We try to help you, Fred, but
that's another story. You do help me because I worked on Saddle Mountain extensively. So,
right.
But I would say the Plum Ranch Road area is something everybody should see. And, you know, that might be a good one to go to while you're burning it this winter.
Oh, absolutely. That's a good idea.
Yeah. And so I'd love to see a shaded fuel break that went through a fire. And there is something like that at Mark West Springs.
Right.
Fuel break, but it was, you know, how do you get through a fire? There's some pictures. And I've got a mini presentation that I've got on that stuff.
Nice.
But we can, I think Plum Ranch Road, everybody should go to Plum Ranch Road.
Right. Plum Ranch Road is part of Saddle. So just so you know.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, I'm super curious about the shaded fuel breaks that have experienced fire and just kind of what the fire behavior changes and severity changes were there. And then I don't want to forget that Green Valley Farm and Mill invited us. Thank you, Tamara. So just give us a quick recap of what we might see on a tour there. I know you talked about it earlier, but I just want to make sure I don't forget anything. If Tamara's still on.
Yes, I'm still here. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Thank you. So we did complete a 14-acre burn last May. And so we can see the control area as well as the burn area. We'll be doing phase 2 small diameter timber removal. We'll be able to see kind of, I'm interested in talking to Fred more about this and as far as what's the next phase that is needed when you have such density in the forest. So we'd be able to see both of those things. And if we save this tour until spring, then we'd be able to visit the mill, which is adjacent to the forested acreage.
Thanks.
And don't forget Pepperwood, which has been reducing from 10,000 stems per acre.
Pepperwood is way more advanced than us. We are, I think we'd be representative of maybe a landowner that is just dabbling in that, you know, versus an established operation or institution in the field. So that might be beneficial to see, or maybe it's redundant. I don't know. Up to you all.
Nature doesn't care who owns the land.
Yeah, and I think Tamara, the ecosystem from Green Valley area to the east part of the county is substantially different. I was on that Green Valley burn, and it's very different than what we have out here. So I think it's great to see both sides of the county.
Great, if people are
I
interested.
think what would be interesting is to kind of create this conglomerate of different activities in these different zones. So like when you think about the habitat type of Pepperwood versus Green Valley, it's definitely very different. And so you have different tools available, also to scale. I think it's really helpful to have kind of maybe think geographically, how do we rotate our site visits so that people are starting to see how each landowner in each type of habitat type are confronted with a variety of different challenges or opportunities. And I mean, we've got some great learning experiences at Pepperwood and other places. I think it would be really valuable to be able to think through and have those discussions on the ground. That it can't be this recipe of management practices per landowner across the county. It's got to be, and it has to be really designed based on what resources you're trying to do and your objectives. I think it's one of the things that we're going to try to emphasize next Wednesday is this: we have a wide range of vegetation treatments according to a wide variety of objectives. And so our passion is to try to meet the objectives with the best management and best science, as opposed to trying to do a blanket policy across all these different habitat types. So I think going into the field and having those discussions, there's no better opportunity to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm
So,
go ahead, Lynn.
I would just add again, to take a look at grazing. There's been a lot of resistance from folks who have seen inappropriate and overgrazing, folks that are concerned about the effects of grazing on native grasses. Excuse me, my voice is not working. So grazing in a way that does fuel reduction, but is also somewhat protective of the forest, because there's a lot of reservations about it in folks that I talk to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we're going to have a lot of potential sites to look at after we have this next spring. Participants in the Land Smart Grazing program. So it'd be really cool to see how that looks afterwards.
Lynn, at the risk of being pedantic, how much are grazing sites in woodlands or forests? Because if it's in forests, are you including browsing like goats? What I'm just very curious about what that looks like. Can you give me just a little more to work with?
Sure, I wasn't very specific. So our area up here is mixed forest, hardwoods and conifers, and some grasslands. And so we're looking at both goats and sheep, and the pushback has been about, oh my gosh, they're gonna eat all my native grasses, and I don't want that. Or they're going to, my oak trees are coming back, and I don't want any goats in any areas where I have oak tree sprouts. So there's, I think, a lot of education and just a lot of education to be done around that. Is that clearer?
What it really sounds like is I need to attend that so I have better education about what's going on. So thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen goats and sheep working in the woodland understory where there's, a grass understory or a shrub. They're able to kind of maneuver around multiple forage types.
We have substantial, we're pretty close to Lynn's property, so it almost could go in tandem. And we have cattle grazing in oak savanna, oak woodlandy, which is very different than what kind of Lynn's talking about. So it might be a good, I don't know, we're probably only like 10 minutes away from each other too. So
nice. And then so like Lynn, you're saying, have a conversation about ecological restoration, or what's the word I'm looking for? Ecological benefits of grazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And how to maybe like cage certain seedlings that you don't want them to browse, and so you can be selective about what stays and what goes. And then also targeting unwanted species. So yeah, just kind of making that tool work for you.
I've been really impressed with the work that Gold Ridge and Sonoma RCDs have done on their Land Smarts prescribed grazing program, and they're really trying to advocate for grazers to connect with landowners, trying to get landowners to think about using animals on their property on a regular basis as a fuel reduction effort. And so I think it's a great combination of resources.
Nice, thanks, Kim. We are thrilled to do it. Okay, I think that would be a good time for us to just take a moment to fill out that column about seasonality. So if you know that there's a really great season for this event to happen, mark it. If it can happen anytime, write anytime, and that'll help me just kind of figure out our calendar.
And then block off your weekends from between December through, I guess, June. It's really exciting to see folks.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind if this was my every Sunday morning going out and seeing a cool forest project. But yeah, we'll try and not dominate your calendar too much. Okay, good. We're getting votes in. That is helpful. And don't be shy about volunteering to coordinate these events or volunteering someone else. Anna, yep. Maybe that was a suggestion for a speaker or something.
Did I knock you guys off?
I should also say that if you want to continue to fill out the this row with the topic and the speaker, please do add your notes. That's helpful. For example, Deb and I started writing something about pepperwood and didn't get very far. So if you want to keep fleshing that out, that's good too. Although, every site has a lot to offer. So maybe you're like, oh, we can see this part, for this topic, we can see that part for that topic. Maybe it doesn't make sense to try and do everything in one go. I think pepperwood is a good example of that. Okay, well, I'll just give us another minute and then we can move on to the next topic. Or, if anyone has anything else they want to add to this, just feel free to speak up. Does anyone else need more time? You can just, keep doing this too while we do other things. Oh, it looks like people are kind of still working. Maybe I won't rush you.
I want to make sure we have time to talk about the conference.
Yes, good point. Okay, just one more minute and then we'll move on.
I think this is a great exercise on trying to get everyone's vote. I think we should probably send it out to our greater body to just get more feedback and prioritize and to say, all right, folks, let's start whittling this down, because you're right, it's about 15 years of site visits and such. So
and I'm wondering also if some of these presentations could maybe just be pulled into the conference to get a chunk of them.
that's a good point.
Yeah. And I think we can, when we get to that part, we'll start highlighting like, oh, this is, a topic we want to bring to a wider audience. For sure. This is just getting the juices flowing. Awesome. Okay. Well, I'm going to stop sharing, but you guys feel free to keep working on your, on the Excel spreadsheet on your own. And then Kim, sorry, your suggestion was that we kind of like put this out to the whole group and get more votes and start to like see which are the most popular. Sorry.
I think that makes sense, just to give other people who weren't able to participate today one chance to take a look at it. But I agree that I think we always let these things kind of simmer, but we got to kind of make some decisions about what we do in the spring, get people lined up.
Yes. All right. All right, so cool. So moving on, I'm going to drop in our next document into the chat, which is our planning document for the Forest Conference. And I'll just, so Sashi and I and the Forest Conference Planning Subcommittee have been working for the last, probably 2 months, having regular meetings, talking about how we want this to roll out and coming up with some good ideas for you guys. So I just wanted to give you an update, and Sashi, jump in anytime, or anyone else. But I think the most important update is that we are looking for an April date next year for the conference. So just let me know if there are anything going on in April that we should be avoiding, if there's some other big conference that we don't want to double book with, or something like that. But we had thought about April as like a month that's definitely pre-fire season. So that makes our fire folks more available to attend and help us plan it. It's also kind of prescribed burn season. So we might be able to get, close to a date when our sites have been doing burns or planning one, or, just finished one. Maybe, so I think Fred was even talking about maybe doing one at our host site, which is Schoen Farm. So, that kind of opens the door for that sort of thing. It's also not the summer when people are on vacation, and it's not the end of the school year. It's kind of like right in the middle. So we felt like people would be around and not too many conflicts on the calendar. But if there's anything that we haven't thought of, something going on in April, other than mine and Kim's birthday, I think that we need to plan around. Let me know.
I think for land managers, there's no good season, but it is pretty deep and invasive plant season. But I don't think there's any time of year that you can really pick something that land folks are not busy. So
I need to, I feel obligated to point out, Schoen Farm has an outdoor classroom in the woods.
Yeah, super stoked to be taking advantage of that. Well, if you think of anything, just drop it in the chat or bring it up later. But we're gonna, I think from here on out, Sashi and I will kind of plan the firm date based on Schoen Farm's availability and maybe our key speakers or keynote speakers. Yeah, I just wanted to pass it by you all first to make sure you got the green light. So then after, that was the big thing that I wanted to ask about. And then I just thought I would go into our planning document, which has a lot going on in it, admittedly. I tried to clean it up a little bit. yesterday, but let me share my screen again. It's just so y'all can watch along. So here we are. Hopefully you'll have access. Just to navigate yourself, we've got the introductory information, which is just sort of like, what are the goals of the conference? We talked about this last time in August when we did the first intro to the conference. So some of this is familiar. Where we're going is Schoen Farm. We want to do a 2-day event where the first day is sort of like indoor, outdoor at Schoen, panels and presentations. Second day is field trips. And we're going to be taking buses or vans to our field trip sites. And those 2 days we're thinking of are Saturday and Sunday, just to make sure, landowners are not, available if they're not at work. We know this puts a little bit of a stress on our like agency and organization folks who will have to be, spending their time on the weekend. But since our primary audience is forest landowners and managers, we really wanted to make sure that we weren't making them, miss their own day job to come to the conference. And then going back up to the top, we have session topics, and the main categories of our topics are listed here. So planning tools for individual landowners, funding and financing tools, education, on the ground work, and coordinating with larger planning efforts. I think where we're kind of landing right now is that a lot of everything other than category D, we can talk about in the classroom on day 1, but D would probably be good to go and see out in the field. So I'm just going to jump us down to category D and start to get your thoughts on good sites for us to go to on day 2 to see some of these things happening. So let's see. Oh yeah, so the way that this works is we have the topic, and we also have the person who kind of volunteered to like write a description and sort of like, be the primary on it, written at the front of the topic. So this first one is fuel reduction practices with ecological approaches to vegetation management. You can read, the rest of that. Jason had volunteered himself. Has a good focus on invasive species management, native species understory management. Next one is CDFW's beaver translocation efforts and sort of like beaver habitat restoration. And then more generally treatments. So treatments like biomass processing, air curtain burner demo, biochar, pile burning, lob and scatter, all of that. Next is riparian protections and appropriate management techniques. Then we have shaded fuel breaks, developing a network of shaded fuel breaks, maintaining shaded fuel breaks, all that. Here's ladder fuel invasive plant management. And then we've got the prescribed burning, prescribed grazing, and then another section on pest management. Just going down the list, best management practices for habitat and wildlife. This handbook one actually is part of the education category, so I will just remove it since I know it's already in education. Lessons learned from this panel. We actually were talking about this as being like a great kind of, sorry, I need to move this down because it's going to be our sort of like wrap up topic where we discuss some big themes. Sorry, I told you I tried to clean this up before showing it to you, but say lovey. Post-fire recovery, and that's all things post-fire recovery, including restoration, invasive species control, toxic runoff, erosion control, etc. Shanti brought up an idea to learn more about forest bird monitoring projects, or looking at redwood forest research and indigenous led projects. So that's our kind of like primary list of all the on the ground kind of work that we, brainstormed. I'm sure there are things that we didn't talk about that should be added, and there are probably some things in here that could be kind of winnowed down or, combined. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts on these and also some suggestions for sites where we can go and see it. Is anyone having a hard time getting onto the Google Doc, by the way? No? Okay, good.
I can't remember whether there is a category for biological monitoring and monitoring of success. I think that's one of the things we wanted to stress. I think Shanti's suggestion of the bird monitoring would be a subset of a variety of different indicators that we can use to monitor for success.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay, that's a good idea.
I think, I mean, if we're at Shone Forest is, they're doing some awesome stuff out there. And they had a mess, and to see the progress that they've made in this semester and just the model that they're, and it might fall under education too. I mean, they fit the whole training program they're doing there, and the progress they've made on that forest is really incredible.
Awesome.
I also do my usual self-promoting, but I think Pepperwood also.
And can you and Fred and others help fill in kind of what all has happened at Shone Farm?
Yeah, I think Fred would probably know slightly better than me, but I get to work with Annie 2 days a week. She's up here at Pepperwood as well, so she's really she's doing some awesome stuff.
Yeah, and the forest is looking better all the time. We're starting a VTP in it, and we've got people actively learning things like chainsaw. So they're doing skills in the forest, and with that, they're getting enough direction so that we're choosing the trees we want. I think Brianna is a better person to present on that, actually.
Okay. But it sounds like they've done some thinning work. They've done
File burning.
Okay, great.
Invasive species management.
Mastication. And now we're implementing the suite of archaeology things. So you know, as a forester, it's really exciting what we're doing out there.
What are some of those archaeology treatments, or I mean, just like protection?
Well, there's the question of the treatment at the end of the line, but there's the how do you evaluate your property for archaeology, and what is meaningful? What do you learn from it? We actually pulled up something called a bottle of Stay Back, which is a 1930s hair product, so that you can comb your hair like that. And what you start learning is that all the history is around you, and you can start putting the forest back together that way. Right.
Another piece I think they're doing really well is partnering with, because that piece of land has the probation camp right there that says Kakaama, and they're right next to whatever winery that is.
Gallo.
So getting wineries on board is like a whole nother thing of like, hey, we're gonna burn right next to your vineyard, and they're I know that's been a progress that they've made, and I know that's some vineyard people are terrified of the smoke taint or haze is going to get in, but really the act is really great control break, so we should be using our vineyards as best we can to burn our natural lands next to them.
So Fred, if you get a bottle of Stay Back, do you have to leave it there because it's archaeological, tells you that part of the story of the site?
Absolutely. You know, I take a picture of them, I go to eBay, I see how much they're worth and what year they were produced, and I pretty much have an archaeological treasure trove, because people are into antiquities, historical antiquities. As for the older stuff, we find that our practices open up our visibility on the ground, and we can learn more about prehistoric culture as well. So that's something else we're doing. Yeah, I'll stop there.
I'm kind of curious. I haven't heard a lot about disease. And do you think anybody's interested in that? We could get, how to read, how to read what diseases your plants, your trees have, and how that'll tell you something about what's going on. Oh, there we go. Pest management, sudden oak death, looming threats from beetles, coniferous forests. I missed that. Sorry, Ellie. I was just like, Botrysphaeria versus sudden oak death. And what does that tell you about your forest and how do you use that to manage your land? Those kinds of questions.
Yeah, can you add that, Steve, to the description there? Maybe we can put Steve as a
I can,
on that
yeah, I'll have to go grab the, I was just on there. I just logged off. Okay, you don't want to hear me whine about that. I can do that.
Steve, maybe you can speak to this briefly, but I think one thing I've been hearing a lot about is the madrone blight as well, and people starting to lose some of their historic madrones. I'm seeing it a lot, and most people I talk to say their madrones are not in great shape, and I know there is a.
Yeah, so a lot of the madrone blight is one of these diseases called bots, and madrones are super difficult to manage because of it. And so you can screw up by you can kill them with kindness and you can kill them with neglect. And so you got to walk that really fine line between the two of them and without understanding. So that's one of the things I was thinking about. So I just got out with some foresters in Marin and they're like, how do we keep the madrones on site? It's like, well, I'm really sorry to tell you this, but you've already cleared the site of everything but the madrones. So the madrones are going to go, so we can talk about it, but that's a tightrope walk and it's going to be challenging. But, they're not alone. I mean, you see this all the time with all of the people buy property. They're like, I'm going to put a house here, get rid of the Douglas fir. I don't even care so much about oaks. I got a ton of them. Let's keep the madrones. They cut down everything except the madrones. And then the madrones die 5 years later. And they're like, why? Anyway, we see it a lot.
Steve, what you're talking about also is about restoration, because the other end of that question is how do you grow a madrone well? So
right.
I'd love to hear about microclimate and growing forests in a restoration resilience fashion. And I'd also throw Douglas fir, what do you want to call it? Wasting disease. It's not a disease. It's Douglas fir drought stress.
Right.
In your list, because that's what I hear about most from my clients. And in fact, I am looking at a place right now where they cut everything, most everything except the big Doug fir, and they're the ones that are done.
So this is not an attempt on my part to horn me in as a speaker someplace here. This is just, I would love to hear, I have something to offer on some of this stuff. I don't necessarily, I'm pretty good at pathology, but you want to talk about restoration, that sounds like a Fred talk or somebody else, you know what I mean? So I just want to have that in there because it's near and dear to my heart. And if somebody can talk about madrone restoration, I have my ideas, but I don't know. Anyway.
I would call it just growing a healthy forest. Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay.
And just to check in really quick, can we see sudden oak death, madrone blight, Doug fir drought stress at Schoen Farm?
No.
That's a great question. No, we can't.
No madrone. Or very little madrone. It's more and not that much tan oak. It's SOD in the true oaks. And the trees are pretty healthy. Let me think about that.
I was just worried about that very question because somebody was saying, they've done great work. The forest looks a lot better. It's like, oh, please tell me there's some part of that hasn't been cleaned up too much.
Most of it. And it would be great to get your input. When I'm thinking about these things, Green Valley Farm might be a good place to look at all of these things. What do you think, Timra?
I think I need you to walk around in our forest with me and make sure that we have a nice site location that could be easily accessible because the topography is pretty intense.
Yeah, well, you go from redwood to Oaks to Chemise on the Ridge, I think.
Correct.
Yeah,
But it's very
Oh.
steep.
it's very steep. Okay. We might also think about land paths properties for some of these things. Bohemia Ranch. Yeah. Ocean Song. But I think this takes a little bit more looking right now.
Okay. And it's like, you know, we can see these, you know, pathogens kind of at their worst doing their thing, but it would also be really neat to see someone who's like working on controlling it and just kind of talking through that process and what success they've had or what success they can even expect to have.
I'm enjoying us getting into the weeds on particular topics, but I also want to just make sure that we kind of get through to sort of the rest of it here, because we need to get the things on this list into descriptions so that we can put the program together, so that we can put a proposal for funders together, so that we can pass this along to Brianna, so she kind of sees what we're doing and kind of sees how she wants to fit it in.
Yeah, so I guess that you know, reminds me that if anyone wants to volunteer to, you know, put your name at the front and to write a session description, you just put your name on the front and then scroll down to the session outlines and, you know, go past the ones that have already been written until you find a blank template, which here's one. You might want to copy it so that you don't use it up, because yeah, there's only, yeah. And then go ahead and just, you know, say your name, what category it was, what's the topic, who you think would be a good speaker for this, what a potential site might be for it, the description of like, you know, basic, just kind of introduction we can use in the brochure that'll say like, here's what you're going to learn. Talk about why it matters for Sonoma County specifically, and then the practical knowledge that the audience will walk away with, because we really want every one of our topics to be outcomes driven. You know, we want people to walk away saying, okay, I know a little bit more about sudden oak death, and I know that I want to do this, that in my forest, or I know a little bit more about what madrone blight looks like and how to work with a forester to start a control plan, you know, or whatever. So having your help on writing these outlines would be great. They don't have to be long. Some of them are, you know, very short, and that's totally fine. We just want a little more content so that we can use that in our proposal and kind of direct our work.
Is that also if do you think there'd be potential good presentation that's maybe not like a classroom presentation as well?
Yeah, even for field tours too. Definitely.
Is there a timeline you want all this kind of completed?
Yeah, a couple weeks ago. So
Oh, okay.
as soon as you can. Yeah, we don't have a real deadline. It's just, you know, we're just really trying to motivate ourselves to get these written so that we can start fundraising, because yeah, we got to start that early. So if you can do this, you know, in the week, that would be great.
I have a burn on Saturday. I will have a lot more time starting Sunday.
Okay, yeah.
And I have a couple ideas that I can put in there.
Yeah, yes, totally. Sorry, it might have sounded, I think it sounded like I said end of week, but I meant in the next week would be great.
Totally.
I was just gonna go back and like keep talking about site suggestions, but Sashi, is there more important things that we need to be doing in the last 10 minutes?
Just anybody who, like you said, anybody who's not already on the kind of conference planning committee, if you've got a particular interest in any of this stuff, would be really great for you to chime in there, because what's going to end up happening is you know, whoever kind of has the time and energy to, you know, kind of build out some of these topics, like that's what's going to be in the conference. If there's a topic that you're interested in and nobody's name is next to it, or nobody's written a description, it's not going in. So just you know, we kind of need a champion for some of these things. We're trying to, you know, fill in the things that we have a sense are important to people. But you know, just with everybody's sort of limited resources, you know, this is your time to jump in if there's something that you think is particularly important to come to the next meeting or fill in the description on that so that we can move it forward.
Brett, I'm adding your name to the disease thing, whether you like it or not, just so you're on notice.
Okay, absolutely. I'll teach people how to look through the middle of trees.
X-ray tree vision.
Awesome. Yeah, scroll through these, and if you're like, oh, biomass processing, I've got a great suggestion for this, please just speak up or type it in.
Yeah, and I think the last section was the collaborative, working with other groups, coordinating with larger planning efforts. Definitely could use some help with that too. Particularly anybody who has, some good practical experience, Lynn, Judy, they could really share their kind of lessons learned with people.
Yeah, for sure.
I have kind of a question. Sorry, I'm so new, but I'm wondering, are each of these, can you explain a little bit more? So it sounds like collaborative multi-property forest management. So that is a concurrent session. Are you planning like 5 different sessions during these different times, or are you going to pick one leading one on each category? Sorry.
That's a very good question. Right now, what we're doing is, we just kind of have these sort of, here's all the everything that everybody's thinking about. And then, we're kind of getting into like, what are the topics that we feel like we could execute on? And then we're going to try to, the way that we're approaching it at the moment is to just try to, kind of slot things in and then see like, okay, well, this looks like we're going to need to do a bunch of concurrent sessions here, or it looks like that's going to be, just try to do it that way based on what topics there's the most interest in and what we feel like we can execute well. So all of these things will probably not make it in because we just don't have the bandwidth, but it's a place to collect it. And it was really helpful to look at the previous conferences and what people had done. So this document would be really great for, the next conference. Someone can go through and go, oh my, look at all this topic list. We can even start from here. So it's good to have this. But yeah, right now we're trying to figure that out. And it's really probably going to be based on what we can pull together and what we can execute.
Thank you for explicating. Sorry about that.
No, it's a very salient question. It's something we're working on now.
Yeah, it is kind of spaghetti on the wall right now, and we're just seeing what sticks. And just explain too, so I'm screen sharing and you can see that Jill's item here under category E is bolded, and that just means that Jill has already written a description for this. So there's a lot of unbolded stuff in this list, and we want to turn those bold. So, if you write a description for something, just go back up in the list, bold it, then we know you did it. And then it might stick. And I'm kind of embarrassed that like some of the things that I volunteered to write up, I haven't written up yet, but this is good motivation to do
Yeah,
it.
me too.
Okay, I'll just give you guys some time to work through this and ask questions as they come up. We've got, about 5 minutes.
Who knows?
Are people working on this or is everybody just kind of staring at the screen right now?
I'm working.
Okay.
I just wanted to mention too that like, here's a suggestion for going to Saddle Mountain to look at post-fire recovery. But we could also go to Saddle Mountain or stay at Saddle Mountain to talk about shaded fuel breaks. Maybe we could also stay there to look at, riparian management or something else. So it might be that we just have a few really good sites that we can get a lot out of. And I think that's great. That's very convenient and we might as well mine those sites for all that they're worth. So I just want to say, I think that's okay. I don't know what you guys think about it.
Adriana, as long as we're it's quiet and I'm gonna rename some stuff. I hope that's okay, but I'm gonna not call it pest management anymore because I want it to be, because I don't think we necessarily want to manage all of it. So anyway, I'll just let you know I'm retitling it so that when you get it, if it doesn't fit cleanly, you know where it belongs.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you ever want to not edit it, but suggest an edit, you can go up here in this corner. I'm screen sharing so you can see it on mine. And change from editing to suggesting.
I'm not even doing it directly. Would you rather have me do it directly into the thing? I was gonna put it on a Word document, do all my wordsmithing there, and then either send it to you or maybe go back into this later and do it. I didn't, because I want to sit down and think about this for longer than we're gonna have time today.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay, good.
All right. Well, we are in the last minute of our meeting. I don't want to break your focus. You guys can, stay working on this for as long as you want. But is there any last words before we break for the day?
Caroline dropped in. Are you still there? Caroline? I don't know if she's still there, but she had noted that in November. Oh, good. Go for it.
Hi, everybody. Sorry I'm late today. I just wanted to pop a quick word that the draft CWPP is going out for the steering committee review and some final internal review, and hopefully public draft will be out mid-November. So I'll make sure and pop y'all a note on the side to get people to dive in and comment on it. And if I could have some time on the agenda for next month, that might be good too.
Yeah.
Just to sort of go over that public draft with folks, which hopefully will be done by then.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Sashi.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. I really like working on the document together like this.
Me too. Yeah.
I like it too, as long as we get it done. we just can't do it forever.
Thanks, Adriana, for doing such a great job facilitating.
Yay.
Oh,
Thank you.
Yeah, this is great. It feels very productive. And I encourage you to stay on, and I will let you know when we have our next planning meeting. I'll let everyone know. So if you want to drop in on conference planning and do this again, that you're welcome to. We want you there. We'll probably look for a date next week for that. And what else? Also, I just wanted to mention that I kind of for the first time in our agenda, I put in a section at the bottom with more resources and events. So there's some links to things, like I put a link to the meeting that Kim mentioned, the community outreach webinar on healthy forest ad hoc meeting. So that I put that in there. I put in some Cal VTP webinars and links to sign up for those. I put in some cool like videos that people had mentioned from past meetings on pile burning or going beyond defensible space. Lots of stuff in there. So just wanted to draw your attention to that. It's in my email. It's also on the agenda. And I'd like to keep sharing out resources like that each month. So send them on if you have them. I'm gonna stop sharing so we can see each other. And just thank you all for your time, and we'll be in touch.
And I'd like to thank Tori and Tamra and Bruce for being new to this meeting, and hope we can work together. This is going to be fun. Okay.
Yes. And
So just to clarify, next steps, fill this out, do an outline form. If you have a suggested thing, put your name next to it so you can be the contact person for it, and just wait to hear or attend the planning.
exactly. Perfect.
Cool.
Great. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good week.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.